Welcome to the June meeting. Summer is almost here. And this should be a short meeting tonight because we're going to spend half of it actually out in the field. So that should be pretty good. So for all of you, though, it will feel very normal and hopefully it will go quickly and you'll be able to enjoy the nice weather. So we'll kick this off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, super. Okay, so approval of the April meeting minutes. Any comments? All in favor? Aye. Great. We'll go to new business. Certainly. Okay. We'll start off with new business so you folks can get in and out of here. So we'll go with 956 Wooten Road. Okay. Yes, yeah, if you can just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your project, and then basically we just want to understand what trees you're taking out, your tree replacement formula, and then how you're protecting the existing trees.
Okay, Dave Wilson, and I'm building a sport court in the back of my house, and we are not taking out any trees,
I see that.
and we are providing protection for the ones close to the property, which we're going to
Okay.
slightly excavate. Most of the ground's level. It's just a matter of just kind of leveling out and then putting the.
Okay. Dave, do you have a drawing or anything that we can look at? Because if so, if you just put it right on that table, they'll project it up on that screen.
What table?
The one right there
Oh,
on
okay.
your left.
I got it.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I think I have it.
Yep.
The trees are right here. None of them are going to be disturbed. Trees are located around the perimeter of the area where we're going to put the sport court, and we're having proper protection for the trees.
Okay. Okay. And can you show us the egress pattern?
What's that?
Meaning how like the construction vehicles are going to enter your property?
Oh, okay. So it's going to come over here on
Okay.
the side of the property. The house is right here.
Okay.
They're coming through the back and around the back of the house to this area here.
Okay.
Sorry.
And the reason we ask about that is because we're just looking to see, are there any trees like in that pathway that would need protection as well?
Right, okay, so this is all open grass right here next to the house, and as well in the back of the house as well. So there's no trees
Okay.
in any way coming
Okay.
to the area where we're going to excavate.
Okay. That's good. Any questions from anyone? Okay, looks pretty straightforward. All in favor? Aye. Great. Thanks, Dave.
Thank
You're
you.
approved. Okay. 300 Upper Gulf. Also, oh, no, you can hold on to that because we have a copy. Oh, okay. Great, thank you. Okay. Okay.
Okay, hi, my name is John Smirga. I am the engineer for my client's Adrian Butler at 300 Upper Gulf Road, which is right on the corner of Pine Tree and Upper Gulf. This is a brand-new home. It was built about 4 or 5 years ago. And the people have moved in. They're the third-party owners. And they want to put a patio and kitchen area and a new walkway in their back. They have this existing patio right here.
John, can you please speak into the mic?
Yeah, John, sorry, can you speak into that microphone? I know, it's a little,
So we're going to put a patio and 2 patios and a kitchen and a walkway right here, and show a future spa, which is not going to be built at this time, may never be built, but we provided a spot for it. It falls under the stormwater ordinance, so what we're going to do is slightly pitch all the drainage to here and put a seepage bed in with 2 inlets, sump it down a little bit, catch all the stormwater from that. I'm showing tree protection around this tree and this tree right here, and the township engineer has asked for more tree protection along this row of hemlocks. Basically, that's it. We have the existing macadam. It's going to be pavers and some concrete, a new kitchen, and an outdoor grill and what have you. We're not doing anything in the front. There will be a overflow from this. That's why there is a little bit of extension. We'll run a 4-inch pipe downhill, so if the stormwater ever does fill up, it will overflow to the front yard.
And to do this, your egress pattern or egress path, I'm sorry, for the construction vehicles, it's along the existing driveway, is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
everything will be
Yep.
along there. There's very little, there's no, the excavation is going to be minimal. It's really, everything is at grade, and it's basically patio pavers and a little bit of concrete and kitchen equipment.
You're not removing any trees?
No, sir.
No. Yeah, the trigger is the cubic yards of dirt being removed. So, okay, any questions? Okay.
The 40-inch maple, just to make a note to, if there is cars in the driveway, that the contractor doesn't go off, because it's a pretty, I didn't see the tree, but
yeah, it's right
I think it says 40-inch, right?
Yes.
So you'd want to save that, probably.
Oh, yeah, we have no.
So maybe, I don't even know if they should put some fencing around that, just
Oh,
on the
Just on the
driveway side. Yeah, just to, can they put
Yeah,
some like
we
orange
could do
fencing
that.
or something?
We could do that.
We can, but it sits off pretty far off the
Oh,
drive.
it is?
Yeah, it's pretty
Oh,
far
okay.
off the drive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All in favor? Approved? Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Now 683 Conestoga Road. Okay. And you are indeed making up for the trees that have not been removed in the last 2 properties.
Okay.
I say that because according to our agenda, you're removing 5 heritage trees, hazardous heritage trees.
Yes, I'm not sure if they're heritage trees. My dimensions were a little off, but I'm Jason with Jet Green Tree Service.
Okay.
She is taking down 5, but I gave you the circumference, not the diameter.
Oh.
So the maple trees, there's a larger poplar. It's 51 inches in DBH. That's the one of question. 3 maples, 2 have been struck by lightning. The entire heartwood is rotted out. The other one has surface roots that are extending into the customer's driveway, and they're all damaged. The poplar on the left-hand side, which is 10-inch, is all rotted at the root flare. The poplar in the front, that's the one in question,
Okay.
I believe.
Okay. And John, maybe you can help us out. I know normally this would go through the hazardous tree application. But
So
this-
we did review these trees. They are all heritage trees.
Okay.
There are some issues with the tree in the front. We did not deem that a hazardous tree.
Mm-hmm.
The tree in the back, there is a poplar that is in bad shape. The maples are iffy, but the tree in the front, because there is no defects observed, is a question why
So
it's
that's
coming
the
down.
trigger.
Correct.
Oh, okay, great.
Something maybe we could just prune, I mean,
I was there. My feeling about that tree is, just for context, in 2017, we heard this property. And in 2017, the thought of the owners and the folks doing the work were, we're going to try to save all these trees. Now, there was trenching work that went from Conestoga into the middle of the house. I don't know what that did to some of these trees, but it got pretty close to the big one. There's a lot of stone and rubble around near the driveway that was on top of tree roots. And that's just contextual. I'm not bringing this up to make a scene out of this tonight, but what I'm saying is that big one, to me, looks a little thin in the top, but I don't think that means it's dying. I think that tree should be, all effort should be made to save that tree, especially if we're going to bless 4 others going. That didn't need to go, frankly.
Okay, so then if I understand correctly, it's 4 hazardous trees, 1 healthy heritage tree. And is the owner okay not removing the healthy heritage tree and just having it pruned?
She's doing this for safety, to my understanding, so I would have to obviously approach her with that, but that would be the next step.
Okay. So her request is to remove all 5 trees, including the healthy heritage tree.
The poplar scares her. It's right over her house.
That's the healthy one?
That's the healthy one.
Okay.
She's got about 3 or 4 major leads. The tree's 120 feet tall, 110, 120 feet. It's a
Yeah.
big tree. And the whole thing's leaning over her roof. She's very nervous, and she's getting these huge branches out of there. In my mind, no, I don't think the tree needs to come out, and I don't think it's dying. I would be nervous with that tree being over my house in general. But no, I don't think it needs to come out. I would take all the dead branches out, I would prune it, open the tree up, get the wind to pass through it,
Yeah.
and leave it alone.
Okay.
That would be the next step of what I tell her.
Yeah, I mean, that is certainly the option that we would advocate for. If not, it would be her right to take down this tree, but then she would have to plant 6 more trees. 4 of them would have to be large canopy.
I don't think that's where she wants to go with this at all.
Yeah.
She's doing this just to sleep at night. I mean, her whole front yard's a septic system, I believe. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I mean, the whole front yard is soft and mush, and it would make me nervous, that's all I'm saying. Her driveway's not paved, it's stones. It's not like you get any support for the driveway. The ones on the maple trees are coming up through the stone driveway now. It's just, I don't think the tree's dying. I don't think it has a timeline that's short either.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to where we were, I think it was a year ago, just to try and ground folks what we can and can't do. Because we went through this once before where somebody wanted to remove, they were doing new construction and they wanted to remove a healthy heritage tree. We don't get these requests too often, so that's why we're going to kind of refresh our memories here. And what we discovered through that was that we do have the right to reject that motion by the resident, but then it would go to it could be appealed by that resident, and it would go to the Board of Commissioners. And then they would get the final say. So we can go that avenue and suggest that the tree be pruned or other things, or we can allow this, and then the resident would have the option either to plant 6 trees, 4 being large shade trees, or donate $500 per tree, $3,000 to the Shade Tree Fund. So with that thought in mind, I'll open it up for questions and comments
Can I-
from all of you.
I just have one more thing. So the tulip poplar is a very upright tree, John, and it's, the structure of this tree isn't that you have a lot of stuff coming off the sides low or anything. So it's straight. The structure is, to me, thinning that tree, wouldn't even need a cable. If you thinned it away from the house a little bit.
No cable.
Do these trees roll out of the ground, John?
I mean, there's always a good chance, it's very soggy, as you stated.
No, it's not as soggy there. This is very close to the house.
Yeah, it was wet. When I walked up in the area, it was wet the one that was there.
Well, the real water is toward Conestoga, though.
Honestly, the biggest concern, if I was living in that house, is that busting my foundation. That's how close it is to the house. That would be my concern, because I know her garage foundation's gonna start cracking. It's just a matter of time. I don't think anything else structurally is gonna be too harmful with that tree. It's proximity to the targets, the house, and what it's gonna do to the foundation. That's, other than that, I think that tree's fine. It's just, it's where it is.
My only pushback would be that in 2017, this was new construction. So that tree was there. This tree pre-existed everything that happened.
Yep.
So they cut those roots.
Cut them.
So those roots aren't going to push anything.
It will though. It'll grow back. They will. That is a very aggressive species. Biggest species we have in this area, right? If it doesn't die, it's a two-way street. Catch-22. Cut the root systems. The tree dies. You got to remove it. It doesn't die. It will regenerate and will regrow, and those root systems will have no problem going through that foundation. That would be my biggest concern. Either way, you lose.
Would the owner be willing to? Would replace the healthy tree with 6 other trees?
I doubt it.
You doubt it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I've had a 15-minute conversation with this lady, so I don't think that was her intentions to go spending a lot of money on the project. I don't know. I just,
Madam President, so the question that was just asked, if it's a healthy heritage tree, it's not a question of would they be willing to? That's a requirement
Right.
this committee
Well,
can impose, if
I
you
think,
wish.
yeah, no, I think Joe's asking because it's an either or. Either you replace it with 6 trees or you give the township $3,000 and the trees are planted elsewhere. You know, it's one or the other.
I'll just go to her and see which way she wants to
Yeah.
go. I mean,
And the cost,
$250 per tree for a resident.
for a resident, it's
Oh,
half.
thank you.
That's
Okay.
for land development or commercial developers, so.
Okay. Better? So 1,500.
right.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Okay.
push, try to prune it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to try.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So I think for right now, we put the ball back in the residents' hands to say, and you guys tell me if you agree with this, that option 1 would be to keep the tree and prune it. But we do understand the safety hazard. Option 2 would be remove the tree and either replace it with 6 trees or provide the township with $1,500 to put tree replacements elsewhere. And let the resident come back to us and, you know, tell us what they want to do. Does that sound right?
Is that typically 6, just a
No,
general?
go ahead.
6 trees per tree?
Per heritage tree.
For all
So-
heritage trees, yep.
Yeah.
Okay. No, not laughing at it. I just
No,
didn't
no,
know.
no. Yeah, that's the trigger really, is
Yeah.
taking down a heritage tree and trying to keep the tree canopy within Radnor Township and the stormwater management that tree provides. So it's
Sure.
6 trees for a large canopy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'd be happy to plant them elsewhere if, you know, her space does not accommodate
Without a doubt.
this.
Yes.
So all in favor of that? Motion to approve? Aye? Okay.
So
And
the-
Trish will document it in the meeting notes, but are you clear on the ask?
The other trees are okay to
Yes.
be removed?
The
It's
other trees are
poplar that-
okay.
Okay. Yep.
Yep, just that one healthy poplar.
Thank you.
Either prune it, remove it, replace it, or provide $1,500. Yeah.
Got her options, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, super. Okay, so that's it for new business. We have other folks waiting here, so let's see if we can go to their agenda items. Okay, so Gretchen, I know why you're here, so we're good there. Can you tell us why you're here? I don't see you on the agenda.
So, yeah, I was unaware, Madam President, that you were still, I know you were out in the field last time. So I had Mr. Alderson and his colleague on first, since they're here on a volunteer basis, they're doing this pro bono, to work out, so I'll fill in the rest of the board. So the goal for
I see.
tonight is to have Jonathan Alderson, Landscape Architects, Jonathan Hosback, and the Shade Tree Commission provide the list of species for the trees that will be planted in the WBOD tree planting thing. I don't need to know where they're going because we don't have the map from Carol. So I told the chair, by noon tomorrow, I need to have a list of species that, once I have them and Carroll Engineering does their work, I can sit with John Rockwell Hosback and Jonathan Alderson and his colleague, and they can tell me where they want the trees and we plug it in, but I cannot wait to the July meeting. So I had requested they be first on the list. Like I say, they're doing this pro bono. They don't want to take a lot of their time. The goal is to come out with whether it's 6 or 20 species that you want to use. I just need to know what they are so I can provide that to our consultant.
Why don't we get Gretchen on real quick? Because Gretchen has,
Hi, all. It's Gretchen Grobel with Radnor Conservancy. I wanted to introduce one of my summer interns, James Sweet. He's a rising junior at Radnor High School, and I'm going to give him a couple minutes to talk, but basically, the Conservancy would like to get the shade tree ordinance on real estate documents for all new residents moving into Radnor Township. And he's going to just talk briefly about that, and then would love to collaborate with the commission to move that forward. So.
Sounds great. Welcome, Jonathan.
I'm James.
James, sorry.
So Mrs. Grobel introduced me this idea that we would include a shade tree ordinance certification form on future transfer of real estate documents. And the whole purpose of this form would be to inform people of the shade tree ordinance, because I know that just from talking to some people that a lot of people aren't aware of the shade tree ordinance. So by just people knowing that it exists, there's a greater possibility that they will follow the ordinance. And so basically what the certification form, and I have some copies to hand out, says is that it kind of outlines the key points of the ordinance, and there's a little checkbox, like an I understand box, confirming that you understand what the shade tree ordinance says and that you promise to abide by what it says. So I can pass that out.
That would be great.
Yes.
And we're happy to work with, work with you guys to streamline this, and I think it would be a feather in your hat and our hat, and I just think it would be great moving forward. It would just help with the awareness.
Yep.
And I just think it would be a positive overall. So I just had 2 quick points, and I know
No, it's okay.
you want to head out. Willistown Conservation Trust has reached out to us and many people in the community about all of the proposed tree work that PICO is going to be doing. I guess they've contracted Davy Tree Service. Willistown has PICO's proposing to take 650 plus trees down. I just, they've already taken some trees down in Radnor Township.
Right.
I just think it's important for the Shade Tree Commission and for the township as a whole to understand, our relationship with them. And we have a shade tree ordinance. Are they required by law to abide by that ordinance, or do they? So I think it's important for us to understand that relationship, because if 650 trees are taken out in Radnor Township, it's going to have a major impact,
Yep.
With stormwater, with all kinds of things. And I think it's important for us to follow up on that.
And Gretchen, on that, if we take that one at a time, that's something we've talked about, that we've wanted to liaison with PICO to understand their guidelines and to work more proactively with them versus the state of affairs that we currently have.
Right.
And the pruning practices and the numerous trees that you mentioned. Do you have a contact at PICO?
I'm sure Bob or Steve has a contact.
But you haven't talked to them yet. It's
No,
Davy. Okay.
no,
Okay,
no.
great.
So,
Okay, then we
ladies-
Willistown, the trees taken out, the trees that are proposed to be taken out in Willistown, I believe that contract is with Davy. I don't know about Radnor
Okay.
Township, but I think that we should know.
Yeah.
We should find out.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, and
Can
I
I
think
just-
if we're going to do something around a forum with PICO, we need to do it in concert with the township.
Of course.
Because the relationship between the township and, my understanding is the township doesn't have total control over what happens in the township when it comes to PICO right-of-ways. So, and I'm not sure what the law is on that, but that's why I think if we have a meeting, it has to include all parties that are going
Right,
to.
I think it's important, it's especially important for the township to relay what they do know to the residents. Because if people hear of this through a friend on Facebook, it's not good communication. So I think that's really crucial, so.
If I may, so on Mr. Golis's item, so the township has zero authority over what PICO does from a tree trimming standpoint. They're regulated by the PUC. A couple years ago, when they went down Bryn Mawr Avenue, right, and what they left, Mr. Hosback went out, and he gave us a report, and the bottom line was they're doing exactly what they're required to do to meet PUC requirements for horizontal and vertical distance from the lines. But from an arboricultural standpoint, it's a disaster. To that end, the president of your Board of Commissioners, Commissioner Borowski, had requested that we reach out to PICO, which we did. PICO will be at Monday night's Board of Commissioners meeting. They're going to provide a little slideshow regarding how they maintain trees. They're going to show that to us, and it'll be open for discussion. So Commissioner Borowski was on top of this. She's been on top of this, as has the township manager. So at her request, they will be here Monday night to talk about that.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, it would be great if there was a shade tree representative there to, I mean, we'll try and have someone there from the Conservancy,
Right.
but I think it would be wise for someone from the Shade Tree Commission to be there.
Right, and maybe
Just
there's
a
even a better way
suggestion.
that we can do planting of new trees to avoid some of the pruning that's taking place.
So,
Yeah, okay.
and just one last thing, and I will be done. We have, I mean, just listening to the gentleman that was up before us, 4 heritage trees. I know he said they're hazards, but I think that something is lacking in our ordinance when so many hazard trees come down and we don't require the resident to plant another tree or give $50 for a replacement tree. I think that if we kind of look historically at how many trees are coming down, it's a big gap in our ordinance. And I think that, there's room to, help the trees and help the community and help our canopy with looking at that. Looking at that, please.
And I think it's something we've talked about here on this committee, and Joe's going to be leading up, redoing the ordinance this year. I got to admit, we hear like split opinions. Some are fully aligned exactly with what you're advocating for, Gretchen, and others would say, a resident who loses a tree, maybe it falls on their house, they have to pay to remove it. The last thing they want to do is plant a new large tree in their yard. They're a little bit skittish of that.
Well,
and
we could. I mean, you guys, the ordinance could offer. We have 400 acres of parkland in Radnor Township.
Yeah.
We can take that tree and plant it in a park. We can put that towards.
Or maybe we find a way of having trees donated on their behalf and planting it, because also it's a big expense when a resident removes it. So to ask them to pay more money for a new tree, I'm just saying, I think it's something we've got to work out, because there's definitely arguments on both sides of the fence.
Yeah.
And what you're advocating for, I've heard as well, and then I've heard residents say the opposite as well. So I think we just have to figure out a middle ground.
Right. But, we need to remember that we have an ordinance to protect these, to protect our canopy, and you guys have the ultimate say in a healthy heritage tree.
Healthy, yes, yeah.
In a healthy heritage tree.
Yeah.
So
that we can do.
Yes.
Healthy,
Yes.
we're good with. I think
Yeah.
it's the hazardous ones where, we'll have to figure that out.
Right.
But requiring a resident to plant a new tree because they're taking down a hazardous one could be tough, but maybe
Well, I
there's
thi-
a middle ground.
I think
where we
there's
suggest
room,
it.
there's room for improving or strengthening the ordinance and when it comes to hazard trees.
Well, one of the things we've talked about is proactive communication, because we think so often if somebody takes down a large tree, maybe it's fallen on their house, maybe they saw something happen to a neighbor, then they're skittish, where
Yeah.
if we can educate folks, hey, it's a healthy tree, it's
Right.
very unlikely it's going to fall. It's the unhealthy trees
Yeah.
that end up with branches falling and landing on your house. So we thought if there's a way that we can make people more comfortable
Yeah, absolutely.
with trees, or even we're working with Steve McNeilis
Yep.
via Matt's survey to identify, these are all the hazardous trees we've identified. Can we proactively take them down before winter comes?
Yeah.
So they don't fall, so you don't have people
Yeah.
without power, so you don't have this cycle where everybody just wants to take down their trees because, look, I lost power, or it could fall on my house. So
Yeah.
we're thinking of ways like that as well
Yeah,
to.
and we are happy to collaborate with you guys,
No, I
too.
know.
I mean, we have
Yeah.
been actively trying to, engage folks on better understanding.
Right.
And I don't know the state of our stormwater committee, if it's
Yeah.
not active, but every tree that comes down, I mean, he was talking about a wet yard.
Yeah.
If they take 4 heritage
It'll be
trees
more
out,
wet.
it's gonna be,
Yeah.
it's gonna be,
Yes.
so, that's a whole, awareness and education part of it. So, thank you
Hey,
guys.
Gretchen, just one question on the certificate.
Yes.
Was your intention and James, was your intention for us to vet this? Because I would like that. Like, I don't think
So-
we should just say this is now going.
So we would really like you guys to look at it as a whole committee and, mark it up and
Yeah,
say,
okay, fine.
this makes sense, that doesn't make
Okay.
sense, it's way too long, because it's going to be a page on a real estate document. Basically, it's similar to, one of our board members said, like the smoke detector. It's like you check a box and you're notified that, you've been alerted about this or that. And it's the same thing with the shade tree ordinance.
Okay.
We don't want it to be, cumbersome.
Yep.
We want it to be
Yeah.
straight and to the point and, let people know that it's an ordinance within Radnor Township and you're aware of it. And, but yes, mark it up, let us know, and we're happy to. And ultimately, when you're happy with it, we would love for you to present it to the Board of Commissioners, and hopefully, they'll see the value in it and say, yes, this is going to, move into whatever, I don't know what you call it. You make an amendment to put this with all of the other real estate documents within the township. I'm not sure what you call that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So is your intention, James and Gretchen, to have this document be go along with the use and occupancy documents? So real estate forms, that's a very broad term.
So when someone purchases a home in Radnor Township, this would be part of the documents that they're presented with and that they have to sign off on.
So the only ones that go with the township are use and occupancy at this point. So
Okay.
as an agent, that's what and that is what
So
basically.
it's like the smoke detector?
It's that
with-
one,
yes,
and,
yes.
numbers on your house, you can't have
Yeah.
water in your, so there's a few
Yeah.
things. So my question is that there may be other things out there too that would go along with it, so.
Well, that's up for you guys to discuss. I mean, our ultimate goal was that there would be greater awareness that this ordinance exists within the township, because, people have lived in the township for years and years and don't understand what the ordinance says.
Yeah, and we actually had the same idea, similar idea, I should say, but working through the realtors. Like, could we get the realtors to put this in their package of like a new home?
You certainly can,
Same type of.
you can
similar
certainly
idea.
offer that to agents, but there are, forms like this, we practically kill trees. So
Yeah.
we wanted to get the best way to get the information, education to, would you agree, Jenny? To residents, and I
But
would
I
say,
think our
I would say
the-
through the township and through use and occupancy.
Yeah, so what we're suggesting is
But I don't know
that
if
when
you're gonna
someone
get it.
purchases a home, they have to sign off on this.
But I think the shade tree is trying to go another step further, because you're talking about new home buyers, and we were talking about existing home
Okay.
owners.
Okay.
How to make them aware of
Yeah.
it too, which is another, vehicle we can get to through
Right.
realtors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's maybe a couple
Okay.
different ways to go
So,
about it.
yeah,
Is that-
we're happy to,
Yeah.
so if you guys could take a look at this and let us know what you think.
I'd like to make another comment. We've talked about this before in the years past, Matt, is that, we're cautious about being punitive because we want to educate people to do the right thing, not necessarily scare them. So there's that fine line on when we're putting together ordinances, right? That we
Yeah,
want.
I think for something like this, I could see us putting like a nice tree logo on it, something that, tells you, hey, this is why trees are important here. People tend to drive more slowly down streets that are tree lined,
Yeah, I mean,
all that
there's no
good
reason,
stuff.
there's no reason why you
Yeah.
can't,
Yeah, we'll play with it.
have the benefits of trees
Sure.
attached to that
Yep.
too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, but I think this is great. Thanks,
Yeah.
James. Thanks, Gretchen. I think we'll have some fun playing with this.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now, Jonathan. Thank you for waiting so patiently. Okay, and let me, if I can just ground folks. So I did talk to Steve just before we came in, and I think this could work. If Jonathan shows us his proposal, we have our recommended tree list. I would suggest that we do our walk downtown that we talked about. We can see some of the tree types in person. And then at the end of our walk downtown, we can come up with our tree list. If we need more time, we could potentially even do it by email, just long we get Steve something tomorrow by noon. So I don't think we have to decide before we leave here. We just have to decide tomorrow before noon.
Well, the reason why I'm here is I read in the Mainline Times that you were planting 60 Cowrie pear trees, and I
Yeah,
freaked
that's
out and called that guy and said,
Yeah, no, that's not true, yeah.
What can I do to help? So Grace and I are here, and we put together a list, and it needs tweaking. We didn't realize.
Jonathan, back up just a little bit. Just talk about where you're from, what you do, and where your office is.
I'm a landscape architect. I've met you
Yes.
before. I'm in Wayne. I'm vested in this community. My office has been there for 20 years. So this is it's my work home. I live in Haverford, whose ordinance is rotten compared to yours. So if you improve it anymore, I'm going to be cribbing it from my township. But so we're really interested in our community, and so we're here pro bono. We put together a list here of plants that we'd like to see rather than a Cowrie pear. So our interest is in diversity, in plants that benefit humans and wildlife. I know that you have a problem with oaks. We've got a lot of oaks on our list. There's a lot of fall dig hazard trees on this list because a lot of plants are a spring dig. Your need is more immediate than that. There's some grants and things that you're going to get. So it limits what we can plant right now. So we put this list together. We'd like a chance to go over it with John and to tweak it. Our intent is just not to see 60 homogeneous Cowrie pears that are going to go out of control. We volunteer down in Fairmont Park cutting these things out. So that's the reason we're here, was just to not to see a misstep. And I know there's a lot of educated people that wouldn't have that, would stop that.
Yeah,
but
we
would
agree with you. That, just to set the record straight, that wasn't our recommendation.
I know,
Okay.
I know. So, but that was the
The
catalyst
impetus.
for us to get here. Just to go back to what PICO is doing, and we had a conversation about that outside, is that we've got a lot of ash tree both in Willistown and here, and a lot of that could be because of that. So I think there's a lot of discussions that should take place when you're starting to talk about Radnor streets and what you have on your streets in terms of the plants outside of the downtown. So we're just here to help. We've offered our services to help with John and to look at what the engineers have put together and to suggest plants that would be appropriate for the different areas where they're going in. And it might be a columnar tree where it's close to a building, or a broader shade tree where it can be planted.
Do you want to walk us through your proposal?
It's not a proposal, it's just a list. And
Okay,
if you want to can't see it.
No, it is a little difficult to see.
There's a lot of plants on that list that are not, are a full dig hazard. So the list is pretty limited as to what you can plant now. So I think it's going to be that we get, say, 10 to 15 species of plant that we can get, and that we go from that list. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, it's going to be a pretty limited list. What we'd like to do is in the spring is to start planting those plants that we can't plant now, so that we have a diversity, so that we're not sort of stuck with one or two species, that we're not, we haven't got a street full of honey locust or plane trees, that there is some diversity, so that we have some resilience for the next bug that's going to come through that we don't know about right now.
So I think, from previous conversations, we're aligned with the whole idea of biodiversity, so that's good. And I understand, Jonathan, you're recommending 2 plantings, a fall and a spring, because certain trees aren't available.
Right.
Do you want to tell us about the 10 to 15 trees that you're recommending for the fall?
Well, I could go through the list, but I mean, again, there's various, there's Aeschylus, which is a horse chestnut that we could be planting now. There's, male ginkgo trees that could be planted right now. We'd have to get them guaranteed male. There is honey locust that's appropriate to plant now. Going down the list here, there's a couple of oaks that we could plant. My eyes are really bad, so you have to excuse me. There's some tilia, linden trees that we could be planting now. And there's some elm trees, some of the hybrid elms. Again, we'd have to be careful with those, because there's a couple that have been known to start girdling themselves, so we've got to be pretty specific about what we're going to be using. So that's what I mean. Right now, our species are going to be pretty limited, but it would be nice to think about this again in the spring, so that we get that diversity.
Yeah,
unfortunately or fortunately, the direction has come down. It's a fall planting, all trees, so we can't.
Aside from the 60 we're planting now,
Why is that? Why is that?
I think that's basically the thoughts of the WBA with what they'd like to see it all done. So that's the direction I've been given, was to get it done in the fall.
Can I ask a question? I serve on the WBA board as well, so I wear 2 hats. And I understand, Jonathan, that you got to speak with Chris Todd, our president, and he was really pleased with what you talked about. And one thing we talked about on our board there is that we are not tree experts on the WBA, and we are open to what you suggest, and especially visually. Did you talk about the visual, how it's going to look on the street, besides
we
the
talked
types?
about, architecturally, you could use one species sort of on the corners to highlight the corners of blocks, and then go with another species mid-block. So there could be some uniformity to it, but we do want to make sure there's diversity within the plant palette.
Okay, and to speak to what Mr. Norsini said, the reason that the WBA wants to move forward is we don't want that to not happen, which I...
Understood.
Yeah, and I appreciate that as well. So I think there was a little bit of urgency on the WBA's part that the money would go away.
Oh, and I think it's entirely doable to do it all now. The point I was trying to make is, hopefully this is not the last 60 trees you're planting, and with some foresight, the next grant that comes out, that we can start planting some plants that maybe you can't plant and dig in the fall.
Well, might I suggest, Mr. Norsini, can we allow for those spring ones and just put those in later? I mean, is that something that we have to go back to BOC for?
So I guess really, this is going to be a sealed bid. It's a prevailing wage project. It's going to go out on, we advertise and we do our bidding electronically on pen bid.
Right.
I guess conceivably, we could say plant X trees in October and X trees in spring. I don't know that makes for a clean bid. I'm not saying that we can't do it, but to Ms. Gerten's point, my impression from the meeting was there is a sense of urgency for all the things you said. It's been a long time, been trying to get it done, and now they want to see it done, and that's why it was, let's get it done this fall. And as Mr. Alderson said, hopefully there's future projects that come up through grants or whatever. If you remember, we talked about, possibly a master plan and master plan implementation. It's a huge sum of money, but that was something that was bannered about, which could take into these things. My suggestion is, if you wish to do it, and I think that I would suggest you get all the trees installed in the fall.
Okay.
The project's done at that point. We're going to be paving the parking areas at the same, and then it's done. Not that it can't be. My recommendation is to make things, for lack of a better term, clean.
Yep.
And then the project's complete, and next spring, you have all these beautiful blossoming trees as you walk down Wayne.
And you agree, Mr. Allison, that is possible?
Subject to availability. I mean, we've got to really, put our foot to the floor and get this done. It's going to be some quick steps between John Husback and I and Grace to get the plans.
Got it.
We've got to check on availability. So, I mean, we're doing that every day for work. So we've got sort of a little bit of a finger on the
Pipeline.
pulse with this.
Okay.
But, the list can't be too small because this time of year it's availability as well.
So Jonathan, just to try and understand the big picture, because whatever we plant hopefully will be there for years. I mean, it will be a lovely investment. So from a landscaped architect perspective, would you recommend doing an entire fall planting limited to those trees? Or would it be better to do a fall and a spring planting from an aesthetic standpoint and from making the investment last? Is there a preference of one or the other?
Well, I'm going to get myself into trouble here with the township, but I mean, the more diversity we can have, the better. Obviously, if you can extend it out, but I know there's a sense of urgency to get things done. So my hope would be that we can attain the goals of having that diversity and still, making it architecturally right within the tight time frame.
And the fall trees that you listed, they're all large shade trees, am I correct?
Well, there's some flowering trees here too, because in the business district there was an intent for there to be something more flowering.
Yeah.
So we've got chestnut, we've got tree lilac. There's a few species. The critical part though is the availability this time of year.
Right.
So we can't have it down to like 2 or 3 species. We've got to have about 10.
Right.
Just to make sure that we can get them and to make sure that we can have it be not like sort of misfit toys, there's one of this and one of that. I mean, it has to have some sort of architectural way of delineating the end of blocks and a mid-block or something like that.
In addition, throw some more monkey wrenches into this. Obviously, we don't want to have more than 10% of any one species. Right. That's strategically with urban forestry. Second, the reason why I wanted to meet out there tonight, and Eileen and I talked about this, was some of the folks have their signage, which is their only source of marketing. So we got to make sure that some of those trees are minor flowering that are below the signage. There's areas, obviously, where we want to enhance shade coverage. And there's also, visibility, sightline issues. So we're going to need a lot of fastigiate, a lot of columnar, a lot of vase-shaped trees such as alcova, trees that can withstand salt because it's going to be a heavily salted area, obviously, because of the sidewalks and the roadways. So we definitely have to go out there, and I hope we have time tonight before it gets dark. I think tonight what Steve needs is a baseline of species. So we know that we have 60 trees. We know we want to minimize our percentages of no more than 10% of one species in order to be safe. So we kind of need to have something to Steve by tomorrow at noon, correct?
That's correct.
Yep.
Can I just say something? So we've been doing the survey now a year. So one thing that we're finding there is the way trees are planted in the street in this township is they just picked one species and laid them down under power lines, like cherries, zelkovas. There's tons of zelkovas in the township, but they've never been pruned correctly. So they're big lollipops of green. And, you know, it's not healthy for the tree. And so with this tight timeline, I mean, the work that Jonathan did at Penn Med was spectacular with the variety of trees you picked for that site. Sounds like the township has a great opportunity here, if you're doing this pro bono, to have someone who really, really, really knows what kind of tree should go where. Like, I don't know enough to not trust you, and frankly, and I think we should take this opportunity for you to refine the list, and I totally trust that. I mean, the only thing I didn't like tonight that I heard was honey locust, and you know, you and I could argue for all day about whether that's a great tree or not.
Well, we don't, I mean, it's on the list because it's something you can plant now, but we don't, you know, we see it all the time, it's overplanted.
Yes.
So.
But anyway, that's my feeling, is that we have someone here we have a team here that's an expert team. We should take advantage of that and not create havoc, you know, by deciding that we know better.
Yeah, I would
second
agree.
that.
Yeah.
Next.
Go
I think
ahead, James.
you're a great resource to have for us. I have a real problem with planting all this in the fall. I think it's terrible for the township because you have a lot more trees in the spring that we could, I think, make the
available.
place look, even, you know, it's not the whole township, but
Yeah.
I think it's a really bad idea. No offense to anybody, but I think it's a bad idea to
Yeah.
spend this kind of money.
Yeah.
And you
Should
have
throw,
your
I
list.
would second that.
We got the fall. I have my list. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many trees that we're missing.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I would go for the long-term investment. The idea being, hey, hopefully these trees will be here for 50 years, 100 years. So it wouldn't bother me to do some in the fall, some in the spring, and make the best of the situation. So I don't really understand the sense of urgency
Well, I'm sorry.
of why it has to be done this
If it
fall.
does have to be done, there is another option, I think, is if we could pick out some trees. I talked to a friend of mine at a nursery, and if the township can swing it, then we put the order in, and we could do some potted plants, which are going to be smaller, but we might be able to get a little bit more variety as well.
So
But the township would have to order the
Right.
trees.
So, Mr. Gibbons, it's a sealed bid. And again, not that we can't do these types of things, it just makes the bid more complicated when they're going to supply and install certain trees, the township's going to supply and install certain trees. The warranty, we lose that when we buy it. So my marching orders were, get this done this fall.
Hey, Steve, what about, is there some reason why the bid can't be one bid for a fall and a spring planting with, you know, 2 tree lists, 2 scopes of work?
Do you mind if I wait? I'm sorry.
go right
I
ahead.
don't mean to interrupt you all. So while we were sitting here, I reached out to Commissioner Larkin, who is the Commissioner for First Ward, and who's been working closely with the Wayne Business Association on this, as well as some of the other commissioners. You know, this is a project, you know, getting the treescape, you guys are probably aware better than I, you know, they've voted on money in the past, the money has gone away, you know, been used by other things. So the WBA and the Wayne, you know, the businesses up there have been waiting for quite some time for the trees to be installed. We are poised to vote on a bond issue, the start of a bond issue on Monday night, where there's going to be $287,950 included for trees for the Wayne Business District. So it is, I think, imperative that we do try to, I know you all are certainly far more, you know, have far more expertise when it comes to this than probably, and definitely any of us on the Board of Commissioners, but this is, you know, something that we feel strongly, many of us feel strongly we'd like to be able to get done for the Wayne Business Association and for our town and our community. So if we can, to the best of our ability, make some decisions that enable a fall planting, that would be much appreciated, especially if we're going to go ahead and vote on the bond and we got the money sitting. You know, if we can use that, and we can also, so that's a good use of taxpayer dollars, and people see that, you know, we're using the money that we go out to bond for, and not just letting it sit. So sometimes, you know, if you don't do a project right away, it gets lost in the shuffle. So I think it's good if we can use that money as soon as we get it. So if everything goes as planned, I think we should have that money by, I think I saw the timeline, by September. So if we go out to bond, if we vote on it in July.
Right, and you can't, I guess, roll it over to the next calendar year. The fiscal year runs by
Jonathan, you might
12 months,
agree.
January to December.
Sorry, say that again, Eileen. I am having trouble hearing you.
You can't roll that over to 2020. I assume the fiscal year for the township must run January to December. You must spend the money within that year?
So
Is
we
that how
would
that
like
works?
to, so the way that this has been broken out, this is a project that's definitely for 2019 in the bond list that we have in front of us. I'm looking right at it. If anyone wants to see it, we debated it, we talked about it on Monday night at our finance committee meeting. So, you know, yes, you know, if we're putting forth that we're going to use it in 2019, we definitely should be working towards doing that.
Jonathan, you know we're using it's a small palette of plants, 60 trees. A lot of nurseries, what I call overhold during the summertime. I mean, if we're getting 10 per species, they're going to be available. I mean, they're going to be leftovers from spring digging, but they're still going to be healthy trees.
Right. So what John's saying is that they're already dug. We could be able to find some plants that are out the ground. So we're talking beforehand that we're going to have a list of plants, and it's going to be larger. You know, there's going to be alternates on that list. You know, we're all talking the same thing. We all want diversity. We all don't want cow repairs or a sea of honey locusts. And that's why we're here. You know, we just wanted to help in that way.
Yeah.
So
Let's pick the species we want, whether it's fall hazard or not. See what's available. We can always come back as substitutions.
Right.
It's a working order with the contractor, just like we did for the spring project. Let's see what's available. Let the contractor, once he's awarded, come back to us and say, I can't find 6 of this. We're going to go with this. We can approve it as a team here, and move forward with the list.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So any other questions from folks here? Okay, so let me
just-
see if go ahead, James.
Is there a possibility that township can purchase the trees and bid out as just the installation? So we can get the trees and make sure we have them?
So actually, Mr. Gibbons, we did talk about that.
Yeah, I saw.
With the manager and the commissioner, was, the township buy the trees, have them stay at the nursery. They keep them, they maintain them till that time. I just have to see what that does to the price of the bid. I would have no problem doing it. I also, so no offense to contractors anywhere, because I used to be one, but I try to make the bids very, very clear and clean cut, because a lot of times they read different things into them. But we did actually discuss maybe we should buy the trees. That's still an option. And so what I would ask this commission, and what I would ask from tonight, is just give us your list of whatever species, the ones that can be gotten in the fall, the ones that can be gotten in the spring, and we'll have to weigh cost and availability and the ability to do that in the contract, because for 60 trees, I think I have to go to bid again. And I don't know that I have the time to do a bid for the township to purchase trees and have them towed in and do this other bid at the same time. I'm not quite sure. So those are the things we have to work out. We do, so anything over $25,000 is going to be sealed bid. So I'm just thinking, we might be able to do that without going to bid, but I do need to research that a little and discuss it with these two gentlemen. And
So what if we do this as a proposal? Tell me what you think. let Jonathan and his organization come up with the species list, which it sounds like they already have a good head start at, including both typically available fall and spring trees, so like your ideal list. And if they're available, that's great, we go with it, and if not, we default to what's available in the fall, since the WBA and BOC have basically decided they want to do this in the fall. So there is no two-phase option here. That's what I'm hearing. Does that work?
That works for me.
Okay. I have one other question. In this WBA project, we were told that all trees would be taken down in the township, and we would start, kind of from square one and planting. Is that still the case, that all the trees, healthy or hazardous, all get taken down?
The basic premise is that, and after reviewing some of these trees with the arborist, I don't know, there's some trees between the new wine and spirits store and DeMick Antonio's. I don't think they're hurting anybody. They're larger trees. Perhaps they could stay. But I think North Wayne most definitely exhibits trees that need to come out, even though they may be healthy. They're just way oversized. They're tearing up the sidewalk. So the plan was, and the request from the WBA was very specific when they came talking about the WBOD, was remove everything that's there and replant. Now, some of those trees have been planted in like the last 3 years through the big tree through the big tree program. I think we could evaluate that, but I'm not sure that they're even the appropriate species for what's going on. So the basic premise is to remove what is there and install the appropriate species, height, width, columnar, not columnar, flowering, not flowering, and that's never been done to this point in Wayne. It's always been, we can get this tree, let's put it in. So more or less it is to scrape what's there and move along.
Yeah, so the reason I'm asking is just to understand the scope of what we're deciding tonight. Is it basically just the tree list and species, or is it also whether the whole Wayne downtown will be clear cut?
It is solely just the species.
Okay, okay.
No, just the species. Thank you.
Not the digging of new pits or not new
No,
pits?
we've
Got it.
vetted all this, and it's come down to, we're putting them back in their existing locations. One comes out, one goes in. It's solely the species here.
Okay.
So I guess there's no chance of replanting elsewhere, any of these healthy, nice trees? I mean, I just hate the thought of killing these perfectly healthy trees.
And Steve, will we see that plan at some time? What the,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
you-
larger plan, not just the listed
You will,
species?
Madam President, you definitely will. I don't know if you'll see it in time for comment. It may be out to bid by the time so by all means,
Interesting.
We've been doing this for months. I brought this up, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago. So I'm trying to bring the Shade Tree Commission and all your expertise and all your knowledge and your enthusiasm involved in this. We're down to crunch time now to get this out. So if it works out that I can get that to you before a meeting, but most likely we're going to beat a bid before your July meeting.
Okay, so good to know. So you're asking us to align with a recommended species list, and that's basically it, and not to have a say in the overall plan of, we will be informed, but we won't
Right.
contribute.
I had put this in the
to that.
email several times to the Shade Tree Commission. It was very specific what my marching orders were. 60 trees to be removed, 60 trees to be installed.
Yeah.
So this really it wasn't a discussion item for me or anybody. I had informed the committee of that, and I had said, what I need from you folks, or however you wish to do it, is give me the species of trees, because the other stuff has been decided. Not that we don't want your input or my input.
I think you don't. I think that's clear.
No.
I think we're good there.
No, it's not
But,
that I
but
personally don't want your input.
No, not you personally,
It's
but
that-
I think that decision, obviously, you're saying has been made, and that ship
Right,
has
and
sailed.
that was
So-
very specific. I had noted at the March Board of
Yes.
Commissioners meeting, the WBA came in and they said, we want 60 trees removed, we want 60 trees replaced. The Board of Commissioners said, remove 60 trees and put them back in their same place. So for me as a staff, as an employee, there is no discussion left.
Yeah, no, Steve, I think you're fine. It's just prior conversations where we wanted to have input on this. We wanted to be able to give advice on the overall plan for downtown Wayne regarding trees, because it will be one of the largest projects that Radnor Township does, and it is right up our alley. But we understand that ship has sailed. We can give comment on the species, but I would default to the recommendation that Matt made, that with Jonathan's expertise and his willingness to do this free bono, I would trust his expertise. So that would be my recommendation to this committee, that we go along with what you recommend.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I read about this in the Mainline Times, that the 60 trees were coming out, and that's when we reached out to the township.
Yeah, which I think is great.
So I have the same sort of pangs about taking out a healthy tree. So I think there may be a little leeway. I'd like to think there might be leeway in not taking out a healthy tree and looking for an alternate spot for them. So to be clear, we just want to make sure that there's a good, diverse planting, and not, I mean, you should probably get more issues in the paper like that, saying you're planting 60 pear trees. You'll get more people.
It's true. That's it's a nice silver lining.
Eileen, can I also just reiterate that from the WBA's point of view, it's been years. It's not that we're married to that the board was married to pear trees, or married to taking them all out or not taking them all out. Nobody's really a tree expert on the business board, but it's been a long time coming process. So that's how it sort of leapfrogged over us. And since this board has taken on a different goal system, if you recall, within 2 years, this board didn't function the way it functions now.
Correct, but we did make this comment last year in 2018. We made it clearly known that we wanted to give input to this free advice. I don't think there's much to talk about. I think the ship has sailed.
But that's but I just wanted to give you why it happened that way from the WBA's point of view. So not that it was.
That's good to know. I don't find that acceptable personally. I think we could have done more, but in either case, I think it's great that by accident they published the 60 pear trees. We got, Jonathan to give advice, and so I'd like to make a motion to approve, so we move this conversation forward. Do we find the list that Jonathan, are we willing to approve the list that Jonathan is putting forward, knowing that he'll specify fall and spring trees, an ideal list, and if that can't be done, there'll be a list of backups, agreeing to the biodiversity and no more than one tree occupying 10%. Is everybody okay with that? James, you good? Go ahead.
I'm okay with his list. Still not okay with the whole project. I don't think but that's but I think we are an advisement committee. We should let, Lisa, you do a great job as the president, and you should know that I think we're in agreement that this is probably, I think it's a backwards plan, the way it's going. I know everybody wants to get it done.
Right.
But you can get it done, and you can get it done really nice. And maybe that should be brought up by somebody at the, I don't know what to do about it, but I think it could be done really, really well. Plus with Jonathan and the help he could give to the township, it's like a no-brainer. Like, why are we limiting ourselves?
So, I think as, Claire has explained, and as I said before, we, the Board of Commissioners is very interested in responding to the WBA. It has definitely been a project that has had many stops and starts. They've been waiting since prior to me being on the board. When I joined the board, they came to me and they said, "Hey, there's money for trees," and I said, "Hey, there's money for trees," and the township said, "No, there's no money for trees." But it had been voted on. Where the money went, I'm not sure. WBA has done a very good job of reaching out to all the commissioners, kind of, and working with them around, working with us to describe their vision for what they see North Wayne, the importance of staying competitive with other areas that are, doing some amazing work. And we certainly want to make sure that we have a business district that is, vibrant and attractive. I think that the work that with regards to the species of the trees, I'm certainly no landscape architect at all myself. I think we certainly appreciate the support and assistance, but like I said, so we have decided in the past, I guess, 2 months that we would go out to bond to get money to support a multitude of projects that have been sitting and languishing for a number of years. So on this list, in addition to the tree project, are several other things that are going to be impactful to our community around sidewalks and safety system for the firehouse. Improvements to our parks, things that people have been wanting that have not been funded. We're in a good position to go out for a bond so that we can support these really good projects. So, but we have to do it, and we have to be mindful of when we get the money that we need to spend the money. People aren't going to want us to go out for money and have it just sit. And there are going to be commissioners that are not going to want that to happen either. So we do need to move. This is a project we are moving forward. Actually, all of these projects that we are going out for bond in, we are looking at to do in the next, year to 2 years. I mean, these are projects in the immediate. Projects that we have grant money for to help support, projects that are addressing safety concerns, and projects that we have that are in partnership with other groups that are helping us make them happen. So we want to do that. I'm cautiously optimistic that it is going to happen. We are in a position also for this to go out for this bond, and not because we're retiring some other bonds. This won't impact any of the taxpayers. But it won't require any tax increase or anything like that to do this. But it is still going to be taxpayer investment dollars, and we want to make sure that if we say we're going to do the project, that we do the project, because in the past that has not been the case, and this board is very committed to that. So I understand, and we certainly appreciate your expertise. If we had more time, if things hadn't kind of transpired in this way for many years. I think we're all kind of responding to the, responding to things that have happened in the past that none of us are responsible for, but we are just trying to look forward and make sure that, we are answering community need and responding to requests as we can. So that, I'm sorry that I don't have anything that I can't say, yes, we'll go ahead and wait until the spring, and we'll have a lot of time to put together, a plan and everyone collaborate on it. I still feel like Steve will help make that happen to a certain extent, as best we can, but, it is something that we do need to move forward
And
with.
the commissioners at Eileen's request, when the WB came in March, Eileen had emailed some of the commissioners and said, hey, we don't want to see 60 pear trees. And the commissioners did make it very specific to me that they wanted your input on the species, and that's why I emailed directly after that meeting, was to get the species. I guess that was March. Unfortunately now, at this point in time, we're at the go, no-go phase. So absolutely, the Board of Commissioners, the manager was thrilled that Eileen had, and I was too, I have great respect for you guys, wanted your input. So a lot of the project was set, but not the species of trees, and that's where you folks came in. So I just wanted everybody to understand the board made a very specific note to me to say, bring the Shade Tree Commission, and that's why I started zipping out the emails. Unfortunately now, or fortunately or unfortunately, to get the trees in the fall, because of our bidding process and the design process, I have to go very quickly. So July, I couldn't wait till July for the species. If I have the opportunity to come back at the July meeting and we haven't gone out to bid with the location map, if you will, absolutely, I would love to share that with this board and get your comments, by all means. It's just a timing thing.
I think I think one thing we could consider is in 2020, I mean, there'll be future years, and apparently you're not digging any new pits, and there are certainly areas that are going to be left bare. So I think we could look at that as a potential phase 2. So any other conversation needed on this topic? Motion to approve? Aye. Okay, I think we're good. Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you. Okay, so folks, I think the rest of the meeting, as mentioned before, we can table. Ma'am, are you here for a certain topic? Oh, okay, just checking. Okay, so the idea was that we were also to cover how this spring tree planting went, but I think we can table that for next meeting, and therefore we can go out in the field and walk the downtown. But what I would suggest is let's close the meeting, and then we can even just talk about that afterwards. Is that even still necessary? Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. Meeting adjourned.